Well, hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm back. I have an interesting video for you. Today, I want to talk about Alone the Beast, Season 1, Episode 2. The name of the episode is Ticking Time Bomb. I want to warn you guys that this video is going to contain a lot of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, I recommend you turn this video off, go watch the show, come back to this video and hear my thoughts. Once again, they are in the Canadian Arctic in a similar area that they were in the first episode. Now, when I watch the show, or if I personally go out into the field, there's 5 criteria that I always look at when I'm doing anything primitive, or like as a person watching Alone the Beast, I always look for these 5 things. The first thing that I look for is, what are they using to get a cutting edge? What are they using as a knife? I just picked up a piece of chert right here. I live in the Southwest and chert is fairly abundant where I'm at. Now these pieces are too small to be cutting anything large like big game, but they don't have that luxury of having chert everywhere from what I can tell. The second thing that always crosses my mind when it comes to anything primitive is, what are you going to use to carry your water? What type of container are you going to make or produce, or what are you doing to haul your water around? And on that second note, there's another part of that, and that is, how are you purifying your water? Are you filtering it? Are you boiling it? What are you boiling it in? What method are you using? Something that came to mind after I shot the video of my commentary of Season 1, Episode 1 of the Alone the Beast was, has anybody attempted a seep well or a coyote well, Egyptian well? I haven't seen that yet. That's a good primitive technique to use, where you use the earth to do the filtering for you, and it greatly reduces the harmful things that are existing in that water. The third thing that I'm always looking at is, what are they using for cover? Do they have anything? Are they making blankets out of the hide of the animal? Are they using that for a tarp? Are they using pine boughs or any kind of spruce boughs? What are they using for cover? The fourth one that I'm always looking at is cordage. Are they twisting natural fibers? Are they using the material off of their clothing? What are they using to produce cordage? Are they even using cordage or not when they build their shelter? And the last thing that I always look at, and this is actually a big one, these aren't in any particular order. I'm looking at my notes here of things that I've written down that I wanted to talk about. The last one, and again, it's not the last one as far as priority, but it's the last one I have on this list, is combustion. And what are they doing to make fire? Are they using solar methods? Do they have the ability to do that? Are they using, primitive methods? Obviously they are, because they don't have no tools. So it has to come down to friction, I would think. So let's get started on the show. We have 3 new people. We have a 42-year-old guy from Virginia, a man named Ben. Now, Ben is the older brother of Jordan, who was the winner of Season 6 of Alone. So we have Ben. And then we have Nate, a 46-year-old male from Missouri, I think. I think Nate's from Missouri. And then we have Robert, another 46-year-old guy from California. So the cool thing about this episode is they're all around my age. I'm 45 years old, so it's kind of cool. Now the flare gets launched, and they made their insertion from boats. So they got off the boat on the lake. They're now on the land, and they see the flare go off. And the flare is about a mile away from where they started. So it's pretty crazy. Now, Ben, He says that he's never seen a musk ox in his life, in real life. He said it's big. He said it's going to be a challenge. And then there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says musk ox is one of the few large animals to survive the Ice Age. Now we're talking about Nate. He said, I've never been in the woods without a knife. Now, going back to Nate here, some of his experience, if I remember correctly, was he was a 24-year military veteran. So Nate, thank you for your service, my friend. I really appreciate that, you serve in this country. Let's move forward. We're going to talk about Robert. I guess his quest, what Robert's purpose is, and everybody goes out there and does the show for some reason. Everybody's got like some reason why they want to do this show. Robert's reason was his father taught him a lot of skills over the years, and then his father passed away, and he wanted to go on the show to use his skills in memory of his dad. I think that's what his deal is. So he says right out the gate, he says, cutting this musk ox open with stone tools is going to be very difficult. And again, you know, I'm sitting here looking at chert, and even a piece that's small can be effective, but it's hard on your hands. If you guys have never done anything with no tools and you're using stones, it's hard. It's not easy. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says, the oldest stone tools were discovered in Kenya, 3.3 million years old, and they date back to pre-human species. That's crazy. Think about that last part of that. They date back to pre-human species. It's 55 degrees Fahrenheit outside. There's another annotation that comes on the screen, and it says at 55 degrees Fahrenheit, an animal must be processed within 3 to 6 hours or pathogen growth begins to spoil the meat. Now, if we refer back to season 1, episode 1, the temperatures at their landing were a little bit cooler. They were in the 40s. So let's talk about Nate again. He said he wants to do a gutless quarter. And when he said that, I'm like, yes, this dude knows what he's talking about. That is very smart. Very smart. So he's talking it over with Ben and Robert, and they all agree that that's a good process. Robert says that he wants to show respect to the musk ox by working fast. So he doesn't want, meaning not that he's trying to go fast in a bad way, but meaning he doesn't want the meat to spoil. That's what I'm trying to say. So he wants to use all the resources that he can get out of this animal. He doesn't want nothing to go to waste. And to him, that's his way of honoring this kill, which I give him credit for that. Very, very cool. There's an annotation that comes on the screen about the gutless quarter. And it says, this is a process where you remove the legs and boneless meat without exposing the guts. Now, Nate said something that rung a bell, it literally, and he said, whenever you open an animal up and you expose the guts, that's like ringing a big dinner bell for all the predators, because now they can smell the kill and they're going to come in. So him recommending that they do a gutless quarter was very smart. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says Canadian Arctic has over 5,000 brown bears, and they've been recently known to attack humans and kill humans. So now we're talking about Ben. He takes one of the quarters down to the lake and puts it in the water in an effort to cool the meat so that he can slow down the process of bacteria growth, which is very smart. And then there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says storing raw meat in water 40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder slows bacteria growth spoilage. And underwater meat caching by Ice Age hunters dates back at least 11,000 years. Now, while Ben's down at the edge or the shore of the lake, he notices some bear tracks in the sand and the dirt down there. And also says that musk ox is the hardest animal that he's ever skinned. And I'm thinking about that. It's got to be like a tough meat to process, a tough animal to process. That kind of reminds me of one time I was skinning an oryx. And that's tough too, because on the back of their neck, they have like this real thick layer of skin. Oryx has 2 horns that go straight back. When the lion goes to jump on them, they look down and the lion gets impaled on those horns. Well, if he misses those horns and bites their neck, oryx have this large, thick thing of skin back there. And that's what kind of comes to mind just off the top of my head. There's an annotation that comes on the screen and it says temperatures in this part of the Arctic can plummet as low as -40 degrees. That's crazy. Now they have all 4 quarters of the animal down and they got them in the water, and they're now deciding to open up the body and remove the internals out of the body, removing all the guts out. And they're all tired. This is a lot of work, especially like I mentioned earlier. It's hard on your hands because every time you get an edge and then you cut a few times, then you got to break that edge again to get a new edge, and it's just a very hard process that they're going through. They're all tired and they decide to go to bed underneath the stars. No shelter, no fire. It's 36 degrees outside. They decide that they're going to attempt fire tomorrow on day 2. So that moves us forward to day 2. Nate is down at the water and he notices that one of the quarters is gone. One whole leg is gone. And he's pissed. He's like, what the hell? Ben comes down to the water and Nate's telling him, hey man, there's a quarter missing. And Ben, they're all looking around. Ben finds the quarter. It's up away from the shore in the woods a little bit, and it's chewed up and chewed on. And then they see a bear. They see a bear, and Ben he grabs a rock and he takes off after the bear, throwing rocks at the bear, screaming at the bear. And Nate's right there with them. They're chasing this bear, throwing rocks at it. So then another annotation comes on the screen and it says bears need 20,000 calories, blah blah blah, you know, in preparation of hibernation, and they'll defend their meat, you know, violently and all that. We saw that annotation in the last episode. So Ben and Nate see the bear again and they chase it a second time. And they all decide that fire is their next priority, and they decide to get some spruce roots and braid them together to make a cordage in an effort to attempt a 3-person bow drill fire. Now, the 3-person bow drill fire is a lot of fun. I was taught that technique from Mike Lowe, and it's really cool. You have one guy standing on the hearth board, okay, the board on the ground. He's got his feet standing on the hearth, and he's holding the bearing block and the spindle. So he's holding everything together. You have one guy sitting over here and one guy sitting over here, and there's cordage that goes and wraps around the spindle a couple times, and it goes to the other person. And they're pulling this cordage back and forth like a seesaw, you know, like a one of those saws that they're cutting those trees down. They're just pulling the cordage back and forth. And the guy in the center has the hardest job, and he's keeping everything together, putting the right downward pressure, and it's a good technique. So they're trying this, and it's tough because the braided roots aren't holding up. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says that indigenous Arctic people began creating bow drill fires about 6,000 years ago. Arctic bow drills typically included a handheld wooden spindle, leather cordage, and a walrus tusk as an ivory bow. Crazy. 2 hours in, and they're still attempting this fire, and the cordage keeps breaking. The next thing you know, a bear comes back. Ben takes off after the bear again, chases it off, and they really need fire. They want fire to tell these bears to stay away. Now there's another annotation that comes on the screen, and it says, it wasn't until 9,000 years ago that Neolithic man acquired reliable fire-making skills. So at this point, they're 3 hours in to this 3-person bow drill fire, and the cordage keeps breaking. So the spruce root cordage is not holding up. So they decide that they're going to try to use the hair from the musk ox to braid some cordage. It was Nate that actually recommended this idea, and they agreed that they'll give that a try. Now there's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says musk ox have 2 types of hair. The first one is a long, coarse guard hair that protect them against the wind and the rain. And the second one is an insulating wool undercoat hair called a quivet. Now here we are 6 hours into them attempting to make this fire. 6 hours they've been working on this fire. And they finally get it. They hand the tinder bundle with the ember in it to Robert, and Robert blows it to flame. And I'm excited. They're all 3 exhausted. This has been a pretty good deal for them. So they go to bed again, night number 2, under the stars, cold temperatures, no shelter. But they do have a fire. So very cool. So day 3, they get up and they decide they're going to build a drying rack to quick dry the meat. They want to smoke the meat. They want to jerk some of the meat. And there's an annotation on the screen that said Native Americans have preserved hundreds of pounds of meat through the smoking process, and this allowed them to keep their community fed throughout the winter. They used everything from the carcass that they could, everything that they could salvage from the carcass they did, and now they decide that they're going to burn the carcass in an effort to prevent predators from coming around. If there's a smell, a dinner bell, they're afraid that the predators are going to come into that, so they decide to burn it. So I thought that was pretty smart. So now they decide to cook some of the meat, and they're eating it. They're eating muskox meat. It's very chewy, doesn't taste too good. I'm kind of laughing. I've never had muskox, so I can't comment on what it tastes like or the texture or anything like that. But I'm kind of getting a little, entertainment by watching them. Robert says it tastes like a musky ox. And Ben says that this is the worst meat he's ever ate. It's 34 degrees at night, and they're sleeping under the stars again. They wake up to day 4. They build a shelter, and it looks nice. They spent day 4 building shelter. It looks really good. It looks solid. 33 degrees at night on day 4, the night of day 4, and it decides to rain. So they wake up on day 5, and they decide to smoke the hide for blankets. And then it moves forward all the way to day 8. The meat's all dry, and now it's on to processing fat. And the way they stored the fat was down by the shore of the lake in the clay and the mud. It looked like they buried it, which was very smart. So the fat and everything's real dirty. So they got to clean it, obviously, before they can render it. And then an annotation comes on the screen, and it says fat is needed to build brain cells. Without it, the brain will struggle to carry messages, leading to sluggishness and low energy. So they decide that they're going to make some clay pots in an effort to have something to use to render this fat, which I thought was cool. And they got these beautiful looking pots. They put them on next to the fire to warm them up, to dry the clay, and they keep cracking and popping. They keep breaking, and that could be frustrated. So they go back to the burnt carcass, and they find some vertebrae bone that had been burnt, and they crush it with the rocks, and they add that to the clay, and then voila, that fixed the problem. Now they have good clay mixture in hopes of getting a harder clay. So they got a few pots done. They look really nice. I noticed that they were kind of small pots. Maybe, you know, it looked like they had a few cups, maybe 8 ounces or something, and then they had a couple pots that were maybe, I'm guessing, 20 ounces or something. I don't know, but it looked kind of cool. And then they move forward to day 14. Ben decides to make a primitive hatchet. So he takes a piece of wood and he kind of splits it down, and he puts a stone in there and uses some cordage from the carcass, from the hide, to hold the stone in there. It's pretty cool. Now we're moving forward. They're on day 20. Very windy and cold. They don't have any fat left. They've consumed all the fat, and they're low on energy. There's an annotation on the screen that pops up, and it says Nate, Robert, and Ben combined have lost a total of 22 pounds. 22 pounds between the three of them. And they're on day 20. That's pretty good. If you just do simple math and you divide that by 3, that's 7.3 pounds per person to make it 20 days. That's extremely good. Now they decide they want to fish, and Nate decided to make a bone fish hook. Very smart. He took a piece of bone, and it looks like kind of an arrowhead with a little thing, a little divot in the center, and then it's sharp on both edges, right? Then an annotation comes on the screen, and it says bone gorge hooks were the very first fishing hooks. They were used by prehistoric fishermen 9,000 years ago. Crazy. And the idea was, and I'm using this as very crude as an example, but the idea was that the hook will go in the mouth and then it'll widen itself, you know, so it'll go in line and then go horizontal. That's kind of what the idea was. I've never used them before, but I think it's super cool, and it's something that I would definitely try. So they decide to make some fishing line from the sinew of the carcass. An annotation comes on the screen, and it says natives used sinew for bowstrings, securing arrowheads, and sewing thread. Now my thought was the musk ox meat is dry, and they need fish. There's another annotation on the screen, and it says if the body is deprived of fat for too long, it will shut down the organs, damaging bones, and can result in death. And the water, they're trying to fish and things, and the water's just getting really choppy. Now it moves forward to day 24. 36 degrees outside. Ben and Nate decide to go fishing for lake trout. And it looks like from the footage that they got about 20 feet of line made out of sinew. Ben decides he's going to head back, and Nate follows, and on the way back, Ben sees a squirrel, and he throws a rock at it and gets the squirrel. Super cool. And they're happy because it's a different taste and texture. It's moist, soft meat. You know, they've been used to eating this hard, you know, jerky kind of dry muskox meat. So it moves forward, and it goes to day 28. It's 35 degrees outside. Nate uses the squirrel's lungs for bait. It's bright red, it's bloody, it's meaty. And he mentioned that the fish had spit out the muskox bait that he had used. He's tired. They're all tired, but he's still going strong. Now there's another annotation on the screen, and it says that Nate, Robert, and Ben at this point, okay, again, day 28, they've lost a combined 61 pounds. So if you divide that by 3, that's 20.3 pounds per person. But you can't really do the math that way because their individual bodies, one guy might have lost more and one guy might have lost less, but just to average things out, that's a ballpark, okay? But you can't really use that. They're cold, they're drained, they're tired, they're miserable, they're down by the water trying to fish. It's cold, their hands are freezing. It's getting kind of tough. Ben says that he wants to finish this challenge. Day 28 still. Nate catches a huge lake trout, pulls it to the shore. Ben responds like a samurai, and he whacks this thing with a stick. And this fish is like 10 pounds. It's huge, big fish. And to catch it with a primitive fish hook, I'm impressed. There's an annotation that comes on the screen, and it says, this lake trout contains some of the highest amounts of omega-3 fatty acids of any fish. I kind of mentioned that earlier. I touched on that. And they take it back to show Robert, and he says, oh my God, that's a honker. Nate tells Robert, you should have seen Ninja Ben with a club. It's funny because my thoughts are Jordan, which is Ben's brother, he's the ninja because he slayed that Wolverine on season 6. Ben's a samurai, Jordan's a ninja. That's funny. So they're eating this fish, and Ben says that he can feel the energy just coming back. So Nate makes a comment that he says, I feel like I can go 4 more days with the energy that I gained from this fish, from this meal. And then the show moves forward to day 30. It's extraction day. All 3 of these guys, they say that this challenge was very hard and that they've developed a newer respect and understanding of our ancestors. And Nate shoots the flare for them to come get him. It's crazy. So they won. They completed the challenge. They made it all 30 days. And Robert says that he would like his, he thinks that if his dad was looking down, that his dad would be proud. That the lessons that his dad taught him are being taken to heart. And Robert, there is no doubt in my mind that if your dad was looking down, he is smiling. He's so proud of you. You are a rock star. Your dad's very proud. And then Nate says that he feels like he's leaving on top. He says, I feel like we could have kept going. We were ready to keep going. And I agree. Nate is a rock star too, man. That guy has some very smart thoughts. He talked about the gutless quarter. He talked about, making the primitive fishing hook, and just his skill set is very, very high. And then let's talk about Ben for a second. He said that he enjoyed experiencing what Jordan always talked about, and he looks forward to talking with Jordan about it. I can relate to that. That'd be cool. Your brother Jordan won the show, season 6, and now you've just won Alone the Beast, season 1, episode 2. So you guys are going to have some really cool conversations. I give mad respect to all 3 of these guys. It was an excellent episode. I loved it. I'm just hooked on this show. Can't wait to get myself out there and put myself in front of the camera out there. That'd be awesome. So with all that being said, folks, I want to say thank you for joining me today on this episode of Alone the Beast, season 1, episode 2. Hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Please feel free to leave your comments down below and share this video. I need traction so that I can keep doing these types of videos. And until next time, again, thank you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. And in fact, Nate, come on, flies. You fucker, you're gonna die.